It's very interesting because it's the combination of many things that makes it work. And it's also using the breath. I mean, the pranayama exercise anyway unites the right and the left channel. It brings them into balance, into the center. So you're starting with that already, and then to add the sounds, which the Kundalini itself makes, just really excites the chakras, but in a balanced way, and brings them into balance and just draws out the quality, and you start to become like a subtle aerial. It's quite interesting. You suddenly feel your whole instrument become something very very alive. It's like waking up those different aspects of your being. Happening is that especially in the West, we're used to being very much on the right channel. So what this helps us do is it takes us to a subtler and subtler type of action. So using the breath, using the sound, the action becomes more and more subtle, and our attention goes more and more inside, so that we end up going into silence, basically, into a non-action, and we just go into the central channel, into that thoughtless state. So it's an easy way of getting around the brain. So there's the brain that stops us meditating more than anything else, really. So that even if there are knots or pressures on the chakras, it's actually the effect of those on the brain that actually stops us meditating, because it generates thoughts, essentially. And this is an easy way of getting out of that. So even if you're sitting on a bus or driving to work, or you can just hum to yourself. Just by humming, it helps bring your attention inside. I mean, obviously, you have to keep your attention on the road if you're driving, but it's amazing that it draws it in, and again focuses you in that inner area, and stops your attention all the time wandering outside on the back of thoughts, basically, which go either to the future or to the past, not in the present. As I mentioned before, when you do that breathing exercise, what happens is it's prana and mana, the two energies. These are just Sanskrit terms of the right and the left, come into balance, and then that life force, which is essentially coming from Kundalini and the vibrations, it becomes enlightened. It becomes active, so that your breath is not just breath. It becomes vibrations. Each of the chakras has a specific quality and a specific governing principle, and it helps awaken that also. So those qualities of the chakras are awakened through the sounds. I mean, Kunjaka Stotram is just purely bija mantras, and it's awakening all of those feminine divine energies are being awakened through those sounds. So all those channels within us are opening. And it's also negativity destroying as well. So whatever negative influence we get from outside is just thrown out and thrown off. And that pure quality is allowed to manifest through the sound. But it's not that you need the sound. They're just tools that help. I always say on these sessions that if you can just sit down, raise your Kundalini, put your hands out and feel the vibrations and go into thoughtlessness immediately, there's nothing you need to do. I mean, it's Sahaja Yoga, it's Sahaj, it's spontaneous, it's simple. All you need to do is to go into that. And these songs, these stotrams, all these complicated things are not actually needed to go into that state. That state is its own thing, but sometimes it helps. So they're just tools. They just help us get there. But that state of thoughtlessness, and beyond it, the state of doubtlessness, and other states as well, are where we want to be as much as possible. Even in the middle of our working day, we want to have contact with that. We want to feel that we have access to it at any point, so that if something negative happens to us, we can immediately go inside and just witness it and not be affected by that. It may not be easy for it to work out, but through your attention, you can actually achieve so much more, because you can be sitting among the yogis, you can be meditating among them, or trying to meditate, But if your attention is not there in the top of the head, then you're absorbing wherever your attention goes. So if you're thinking about, oh, I have to get home because I have to do that, and then I have to do that, that's what you absorb. But if you can keep your attention at the top of the head in the Sahasrara as much as possible, which is why, as we were doing those exercises, we were saying always to send it upward, so that you use the breath to focus the attention in that area, in that Sahasrara area. That's when we get that connection. That's when we get those vibrations, and that's when we become more steady, more fixed in that state, so that we're not pulled left and right. We're not disturbed through our mental reactions. Again, and again, it comes back to that strong connection inside, and that's where things really happen. That's where we grow in that spiritual state of depth. Again, when those things unite. So it's again what we were doing in the exercises. We're bringing those qualities together in the center to establish that and to take that into a deeper state. And that's where you absorb. That's where you absorb the vibrations. That divine presence is only there.
Okay, Tim.
And it was, but it's only when you understand what it is really. So it's only in the 1980s when I started coming to programs, listening to Shrimatiji's talks, that you really sort of understand what that process is. So I mean, it's one thing to go into thoughtlessness, and it's another thing to be consciously aware of what it is, how it functions, and how it relates to everything in the world and the people around you. But it's a very interesting thing. And sometimes I would get that if I was doing, sometimes when I sing something as well, or when we do something like Havan, I find a connection with your ancient self. So I sense something which is beyond time, beyond the physical place. There's a connection with something beyond that. So it's very much is a collective happening, really. But within that, we have to all, as individuals, come up. We can never accelerate that much beyond the others, but neither should we fall behind. This was kind of part of that. Surrender is just surrender. I mean, meditation is surrender, as it is. It's an opening. So when we get to the end of the day, if we've had a busy day especially, then there are tensions in the system, there are pressures in the system. So we just release those. Take the foot soak, all those techniques that we use help that. So that's part of the surrendering. That's part of the. We always have knots within us, but the thing is not to be too much putting attention on them. Really, again, as much as possible, you need to go into that area, and using the breath. Using sounds helps, or just through that devotion, through that upward movement through the Sahasrara. I mean, the breath is a very easy way of doing it, and just using the breath as a vehicle to help you surrender, to relax. Just by physically, you put your hand on your heart and you take in a deep breath and you just hold it, and then breathing out. I mean, that release is helping you surrender, because it's, a lot of it is actually held in the body. A lot of that tension, a lot of that lack of surrender, you can say, is held in the muscles and in the chakras. So it's just a question of releasing that. And it's the same with, overcoming trauma is part of the same. It's about letting go. It's not about holding on to it. It's about allowing your Kundalini to do its work. I mean, very much what we were doing in the exercise there is, yes, we do the sound, we do whatever we're doing, but it's important to leave the space so that the Kundalini can just act, so that flow of vibrations can come. If we just went bang, 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 one thing and the next thing, then you're not allowing that process to happen. I mean, why is Sahaj spontaneous? Why is it simple? It's because we don't do anything. In fact, by doing stuff, we can very much get in the way. I mean, going back to that earlier question that Sandeep was talking about the Brahmins doing their mantras. I mean, actually, if it's not done in the right way, you can create a problem for yourself and for others by incorrect action. By not doing it in the center, you can create more of a problem on your right channel. Or if you're devoted, but it's somehow not a pure desire, or if it's somehow imaginary, it's not getting to the real thing. It's going to take you off away from the center into some kind of left-sided business, and into the agya, into the conditioning. So we don't want to be conditioned. We don't want to be too much in our ego. So it's about reducing that and as much as possible being in the central channel. And surrender is just being, as I said before, in that silent, thoughtless state, in that divine presence. So allowing that divine power to manifest within us, in our chakras, and in our daily lives, in whatever we do. That's what surrender becomes. It's a bit of a myth, really, surrendering. It's about getting out of the way, allowing the divine to get on with it, and the ego and the superego not get in the way of it.